cannot wait for my next tutoring session with this young child. He's 13 years old. He attends public school, and his teachers can't stand him. Oh, and I've been thinking about him all week long. This busy boy reminds me of my youngest son, and I'm just going to pull up a picture so that I can actually share with you. This child is so busy. I read reports from all of his teachers, and it was very consistent. This child can't sit still. He's disengaged. He's got ADHD. He is disruptive in class. If you ask him to do something, he's all over the computer. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to continue my journey with him. This child is brilliant. And the only thing that's failing in this student of mine's life is that the adults around him, the teachers, don't see him. This is epidemic today. Schools have done this whole shift. It used to be that girls were left behind. And so now everything's swung to the other side. And now the girls are taking center stage, which is great. But our boys are being left behind because classrooms, if you look at all the data, classrooms are designed for little girls to learn better. It is set up in a way that a girl's brain is just totally excited, but a boy's brain, not so much. So this child that I am tutoring is totally and completely like my youngest son. Let me just say this. Totally and completely like my youngest son, who was born determined, busy, and totally laser focused on doing what he wanted to do every single day. What your 10, 12, 14-year-old sons, nephews, students need to understand is that the way that they are created is amazing. And as an adult, what especially homeschoolers, homeschool dad, pay attention. If you're looking at your 10 to 14-year-old son and you're seeing them causing problems and they can't sit still and they're not excited about the things that you are trying to set before them every single day, it's because you have not identified the stage of learning that they're in and perfectly aligned the way that their brains are knit together so that they can thrive. What you need to do for those boys is know the stage of learning that they're in. They are not in the foundation stage, which means textbooks are going to bore them to death. If they're obedient and compliant young lads, then they're going to do the lessons without complaining as fast as possible so that they can get to what they want to do. If they're busy, like my youngest son, like this child that I have the privilege to come alongside, they're going to cause problems. They're going to break their pencil. They're going to need to go to the bathroom. They're going to look up what you're saying on the computer because they're just trying to make sure that what you're saying is true. They're busy. They don't need curriculum. They don't need the next lesson. Instead, what you do with boys specifically at that stage is you have to keep them guessing. It's your job to inspire. It's their job to perspire. You want to keep them moving. You want to keep them guessing. Some of us have traditional whiteboards that we write our lesson plans on at the beginning of the day so that our kids know what's coming. I never wrote things like math or science or English or writing. I would encode it in a way that they would sit there going, what is she up to? What does that mean? Right? You want to keep those boys specifically guessing. You want to keep them challenged. Our sons, nephews, students, but our sons, homeschool moms, especially when they're really busy, sitting them at a table and handing them a paper and pencil kind of is like it's almost a death sentence to some of our kids. And I can tell you that I know this. Let me pull up his picture. Our youngest son, when he was an infant, I had a friend come over, bring us dinner, and she's holding him in her arms, and she's like, "Bekki, I know he's an infant, but can you tell anything about his character?" She says, "I always like to ask new moms that because what happens is if you can see a characteristic in that infant, I like to see if that's what happens." And she's holding my 2-week-old youngest son, and I was like, "Can an infant be determined?" And I'm like, because this is the most determined person that I have ever been in contact with. He was 2 weeks old. Now, I can't tell you why I remember that. All I remember was this knowledge that I was holding a determined child, even though he was only 2 weeks old. And sure enough, this child was born last. He's the youngest of 5. And I'm confident that the Lord gave him to us last so that the other 6 of us could keep him alive until he became an adult. This child was busy. Oh, if you look up busy in the dictionary, that's what he was. So today, our busy couldn't read till he was 10 child that could never sit still is now at, this is him. He looks like a beast. This is like my current favorite picture of him. He just won a massive rowing competition with his crew. He's at private university and he's thriving, which brings me back to this student that I am getting ready to work with over the course of the next few weeks, because this other student reminds me of my Stephen. And he is not being cultivated in an environment where he gets to be busy, where he gets to problem solve. Instead, he gets in trouble if he gets out of his chair, if he fiddles with things, even in an innovative class that is designed to help you problem solve. He's not allowed to think outside of the box. Oh, so here's what I'm going to do with him. Are you ready? Here's how I'm going to come alongside him in our next lesson. There's a scene inside of Captain America that I typically recommend to moms and dads that have boys that are almost 12 years old, because there's a real gauntlet that boys go through hormonally when they are beginning to go through this transformation. And I can't wait to watch this scene with him, because here's the scene. Let me just paint the scene for you. The little skinny, if you've never watched it, the little skinny Captain Rogers gets strapped into this machine, is then flooded with chemicals and antibiotics and things, supercharged with electricity and power to then come out on the other side, Captain America, right? Well, on the Gauntlet side, it's a beautiful picture of what boys go through in the transformation from young boy to man, knowing that there's a goal to become the best version of yourself, right? And you're going to be flooded with hormones, sparks are going to fly, people are going to cry, somebody's going to try to save you, mom, and the dad's going to sit back and be ready to like congratulate you on the other side. So there's that whole gauntlet thing. And I go into great detail inside our Homeschooling Olympians because it's such a huge transition. But for my student that is surrounded by adults that don't appreciate him, I want him to be able to see that there is a goal on the other side of him getting through school, surviving being taught by people that don't see his greatness, that don't appreciate the way that his brain works, that don't give him the opportunities that he needs. He needs to see what he's shooting for. And then he needs to understand what his job is in it. Is it fair? No. But here's what he needs to strap himself into this machine, and he needs to be willing to go through the gauntlet to become the man that he wants to be. So what does he need to do? He needs to recognize that his brain is meant for greatness, for busyness, for agility, for creation, right? For creativity, for dominance. This kid is a very dominant, creative, innovative person. He needs to see that what he's going to do in life is bigger than what his teachers currently can comprehend. And the fact that his teachers want to squish him into a box, That's not on him. That's on them. But he has to survive this transition. So what am I going to be helping him see? I'm going to be helping him see that his brilliance sometimes will make other people feel uncomfortable. It's the same lesson that I had to teach my youngest son, my husband and I. But in our school day, I was talking to my son, Stephen, all the time because busy brain, just like this kid that I'm tutoring, was light speed ahead of me all the time. So I constantly had to speak over him. Okay, your brain is designed for greatness. You're designed to be a leader, a champion, the kind of man that other people are going to look up to. My brain does not understand the way that your brain works. So when I walk up to your computer and you have 5,000 different tabs open and you know what all of them are and that they serve a purpose. And when I ask you a question and you start flipping through, I need you to understand that you confuse my brain. So your biggest challenge, son, child that I'm going to be continuing to tutor, your biggest challenge is going to be to learn how to exist in a world surrounded by people that think slower than you do, think differently than you do, and that are consistently trying to put you in a box that you were never created to be inside. And I need you to know that that is happening and that it's a process that's going to take the next 5 to 20 years of your life for you to master it. And I don't want you to lose sight of the goal. That's why that scene in Captain America is it's so visual and it's so great for our boys that are struggling because they can see that you start at one point, you're laser focused to get to another place, but there's a bunch of commotion trying to get you to not get to your destination. And I don't want him to lose hope. I don't want him to think that adults that have limitations, limited thinking, that can only see things from their educational boxes, that means that he's less than, that he's not smart, that he's not brilliant, that he's not destined to succeed. Oh, it's quite the opposite. Just like my own son, he was not, if this child was in a classroom, they would be telling me to medicate him when he was younger. Now he has self-control. He's 18 and he's been trained up in the way that he should go. He's become the man that he needs to be. He's a champion. He's a problem solver. He's a help seeker. He's the hardest worker on the team. He's the first to show up, the last to leave. He's the kind of person that if you need something done, you're like, hey, Stephen, I need your help, right? You call him. This child that I'm coaching, that I'm tutoring, that's 13, I see the man that he's going to become. I look at him and I see Captain America. I look at Stephen and I see Captain America, not because he's gorgeous, because he is, but just because he's a champion. He's the type of person that you want to stand in the gap for you and for your family. He's the type of person that you want to be there if you need assistance. He's the type of person that when he speaks, you listen. And this child that I'm tutoring needs to know that that's where he's headed, that is where he's headed, but that he's going to have to make some hard choices. He's going to have to exist within his environment, surrounded by people that don't get him, and never lose sight of where he's going, right? He needs people to speak over him. So why am I sharing that public school child's story on a homeschool page? Because I need you to know that you have great power in your hands. You have the ability to take a very busy, brilliant brain and to snuff it out, to frustrate the heck out of them so that they never want to pick up a book again, that they never want to do anything academic again, that their whole goal in life will become to fight the system rather than to adapt and learn and create. You have incredible power over your children, and I need you to pick up the light. And then I say you, I'm speaking to my younger self. I needed somebody to tell me that. Don't snuff him out. Allow him to be creative. Allow him to problem solve. Don't put the thing together. Ask him to put the thing together. Don't solve the problem and tell him how it's done. Let him conquer the problem and then explain to you how he did it. Brilliant, right? So what can you do? You need to know the stage that your kids are at in learning and in life. And when you look at your child and if they're struggling, I want you to pick up your head and look 5, 10 years in the future. Your stubborn, obstinate child is not a stubborn, obstinate child. They are the shadow of a future adult that needs grit. And you need to help channel that stubbornness and speak positive over them so that they become champions. Your shyer, quieter child does not need to hear that they're quiet and shy. They need to hear things like, you are very observant. And I can see the shadow of the adult that you're going to be, where you're going to be able to exercise your ability to observe your surroundings and then process that information in your head. Know the stage that your child is in. Know it. And if you don't know, take the free masterclass that's somewhere around this video. You have to know where they are so that you can meet them there. Because the challenge that this young child that I'm tutoring is that because his teachers don't see him, because he's told to sit still and be quiet rather than to exercise his own greatness, his self-confidence is waning. He's not excited to go to class because he feels like the people that are supposed to invest in him, see, when you don't see your kid, this is what they feel. They start to shrink. They start to become less than who they're meant to be. And they start to believe the lie from the enemy that nobody likes them, that they're not special, that they're not unique, that they're not wonderfully made, and that they're not destined for greatness. But I see this kid and I cannot wait to invest in him. So I want you to challenge your kids. I want you to challenge your busy kids. I want to challenge you to look at the challenges that your kids are having right now, whatever they are, whether they're telling lies, whether distracting, whether they can't stay focused, whether they're so busy and you have no idea what to do with them, or the other 100 trillion things that they could be struggling with at the moment. And I want you to look past that struggle. How can this be, if this could be trained, if this can be honed, because everything is like a coin, right? It has a good side and a bad side. It has a head side and a tail side. If you could train this thing into greatness, what would it be? And then start speaking that over and over and over your children. And it, over the course of 5, 10 years, causes them to go from struggling to champion. I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it with the parents and the kids that we coach inside Homeschooling Olympians. And I can't wait. I can't wait. God gave me a front row seat on this kid's life that is struggling right now. And I cannot wait to watch the light come into his eyes and the color come to his face as he gets to see, hear, and taste how he has been uniquely and wonderfully made for a purpose. And he's going to be able to charge into that with full confidence. So exciting. So be what your kids need. See what stage they're in right now. Know what stage they're in. Look at their weaknesses and how can that be trained into something amazing, and then start speaking those qualities over your kids. Okay, those are your marching orders. Have a great day.